Hello and Assalamu alaikum, dear students. Today I'm here again with a new lecture of Paradise Lost Book 1. But before proceeding further, I would like to discuss the previous lines again so that you may revise yesterday's lecture. So, if we talk about the previous lecture, we read that Satan awakens all his legions who lay embarrassed in that lake of fire. You know that. And when he calls them, when he awakens them, all his legions rise immediately. They rise immediately like watchmen when they doubt that something dreadful is going to happen. So Milton has beautifully compared their reaction with the reaction of a watchman when he doubts that something dreadful is going to happen. So again, Milton compares the multitude of devils with uh, a pitchy cloud of locusts, the locusts that were raised by Moses with his potent rod. And those locusts were so thick as they darkened the land of Nil. Uh, if I mention those lines, Milton says uh, that over the realm of impious Pharaoh hung like night and darkened all the land of Nil. So Milton again draws a comparison between the army of Satan and the pitchy cloud of locusts that were raised by Moses with his potent rod. Again, Milton compares their numbers with the great northern army that invaded Rome, and that army was a very great army who marched to Rome, and they invaded Rome through the rivers Rhine or the Dona. These two rivers have been mentioned here. Uh, and again, Milton tells that those devils once sat on thrones in heaven, as he mentioned these things at the beginning as well. Okay. Milton tells that those devils once sat on thrones in heaven, but now their names are no more memorial out there. Their names have been erased from the list of angels in heaven, and now they have been given new names by human beings when these devils started wandering on earth. They have lost their previous identity, but now they have established a new identity, but that identity uh, has been given to them by human beings. So this was all about yesterday's lecture. Today we are going to discuss further about Paradise Lost, and we are going to read uh, lines of Paradise Lost. The line number, let's start from the line number 376. Okay, so if we look at the line number 374 and 75, Milton says, then were they known to men by various names and various idols through the heathen world. Okay, well, those devils were given names, different names in the heathen world. And again, Milton says, say muse, their names then known, who first, who last, rouse from the slumber on that fiery couch at their great emperor's call, as next in worth came singly where he stood on the bare strand, while the promiscuous crowd stood yet aloof. If we look at these lines, we find an invocation here for the second time. Milton invokes at the very beginning of the poem before the muse, but his muse is not, as I told you before, his muse is not the Olympian muse, that is the goddess of poetry. His muse is God, the Christian God, the one and only God. He here again invokes before God to tell him the names by which they are known in the world. Okay, same muse their names then known, who first, who last, roused from the slumber. Well, all the devils were sleeping deeply in the lake of fire. They were in a deep slumber, and when Satan called them, they roused. Okay, and Milton wants to know who was the one, who was the first, and who was the last to rise after Satan's call. On that fiery couch, they were in a deep slumber, they were in a deep sleep on that fiery couch. Actually means sofa. um, okay, but here you can say that on that fiery bed at their great emperor's call. Well, when their great emperor called them, uh, and who was the first devil to answer his call, and who was the last devil to answer his call. Okay, as next in worth came singly where he stood on the bare strand, and who came there where Satan was standing on that bare strand, while the promiscuous crowd stood yet aloof. But there was a promiscuous crowd. Promiscuous means collected from different parts, okay, taken from different sources. So promiscuous means different. Okay, well, there were devils of different type, of different, status. Okay, all of them stood aloof. They didn't pay any attention. But there were some devils. There were some uh, chiefs. Actually, there were some commanders. There were some, generals who first joined Satan on that dreary land, on that bare strand where Satan was standing. Okay, so Milton invokes before the muse, uh, and supplicates before the muse uh, to tell him the names of those devils uh, in sequence uh, of their status. Okay, uh, the chief were those who from the pit of hell, roaming to seek their prey on earth, durst fix their seats long after next the seat of God. Their altars by his altar, gods adored among the nations round, and durst abide Jehovah thundering out of Sion, throned between the cherubim. Cherubim, yea, often placed within his sanctuary itself their shrines, abominations, and with cursed things his holy rites and solemn feasts profaned, and with their darkness dust affront his light. Okay, so Milton says that the chiefs of those devils, uh, uh, in fact, Milton wants to tell the names of those who are next in authority to Beelzebub uh, and the other devils. Okay, so Milton says the chiefs were those who, from the pit of hell, roaming to seek their prey on earth. They were roaming to seek their prey on earth. They were wandering on earth in order to seek their prey. Prey, that means a victim. Okay, they were wandering on earth to seek their prey. Uh, Dust fix their seats long after next the seat of God. And they dared. Okay, dust is the archaic form of dare. They dare to fix their seats alongside the seat of God. Okay, it means that the pagan idols who were worshipped within the temples of God, within the churches. So they fixed their seats. They fixed their seats uh, alongside the seat of God. Okay, they dared to do that act. Their altars by His altar, and they dared to fix their altar by the side of the altar of God. Okay, gods adored among the nations round, and they were adored as gods among various nations. Okay, and durst abide Jehovah thundering out of Sion. Uh, well, uh, they also dared to abide the thundering of Jehovah when they came out of Sion, out of heaven, throned between the cherubim, and they were throned between the cherubim, between the order of angels. Cherubim is the orders or ranks of angels. Okay, yea, often placed within the sanctuary itself their shrines, and these gods, these devils who were considered the gods by human beings, they were placed within the sanctuary itself, their shrines. They were placed in the churches. Sanctuary is a room inside a church. So these gods, these devils were placed, these devils as gods were placed in a sanctuary and the shrines of gods. Um, and Milton says that they were abominations. They were an insult to the sanctuary, or the shrines or the temples of God. Okay, but human beings, the heathens, the pagans, uh, considered them their gods, and they worshipped them, and they put them alongside the altars of God. They placed them next the seat of God. Okay, because they were adored as gods, they were worshipped as gods by the pagans, by the heathens. And with cursed things his holy rites and solemn fears profaned. And they also desecrated, profaned. Profane means desecrated, um to spoil the sacredness of something. Uh, it it is called desecrate or profane, to spoil the sacredness of something, to spoil the purity of something. Okay, so when they were put side by side to the shrines of God, to the temples of God, they profaned the holy rites, the holy rituals, the holy festivals, and the solemn feasts of religion, and with their darkness dost affront his light. And they affront God's light with their darkness. Well, uh, with their darkness, they try to, hide the light of uh, God's light of God, actually. All right. So, in these lines, Milton tells us that these devils were given different names by human beings. They were worshipped by human beings. Their temples were, established by human beings. Their seat was fixed by the side of the seat of God. Their Altars were built by the altars of God, and they were adored among different nations, by the people, by human beings, by heathens, by pagans. Okay, and these devils were abomination to the sanctuary, to the church, to the shrines and temples of God, to the altars of God. Okay, now Milton tells us who first appeared, who first came to that dreary land where Satan was standing. So first, Moloch, horrid king besmeared with blood of human sacrifice and parents' tears, though for the noise of drums and timbrels loud their children's cries unheard, that passed through fire to his grim idol. Okay, so Milton says that the first is devil, or the first god who appeared there was Moloch. Okay, well, Moloch was a deity. Okay, he was a king in a heathen world. Okay, so Moloch was the first god to appear, and he was the god to whom children were sacrificed. Okay, therefore Milton calls him horrid king. Okay, um, uh, before his deity, the children were sacrificed. That's why Milton calls him horrid king, besmeared with blood, who was wet with blood. Okay, besmeared means wet, completely wet with something. So he was besmeared with blood of human sacrifice. Okay, and parents' tears. So when children are sacrificed, definitely their parents shed tears. Okay, so Moloch was the horrid king who was besmeared with the blood of human sacrifice and parents' tears, though for the noise of drums and timbrels loud their children's cries unheard. Okay, Milton says that uh, when children were sacrificed before the deity of Moloch, drums and timbrels were beaten loudly. Okay, timbrel is also a small hand drum. Okay, drums and timbrels were beaten uh, so loudly as the cries and the noise of the children became unheard. Okay, their cries and their noise was not audible because of the noise of the drums and timbrels. Uh, okay, that passed through fire to his grim idol. Okay, the children who passed through fire to his grim idol. Okay, Milton tells that how. Milton tells how those children were sacrificed. Those children had to pass through fire. Okay, they had to pass through fire to his grim idol, to his very serious and grave idol. Idol means a statue. Okay, uh, a deity. Okay, so Moloch has been introduced here. So Moloch is a king, is a horrid king, a horrid god, a horrid deity, a horrid idol before whom the children were sacrificed. And he is besmeared with blood and tears of parents, uh, although the noise or the cries of the children were unheard because of the loud noise of drums and timbrels. Okay. Then Milton further introduces Moloch. Him the Ammonite worshipped in Rabbah and her watery plain, in Argob and in Basin, to the stream of utmost Arnon. Okay, so Milton says that uh, him the Ammonite. Ammonite were the people who lived in east of Jordan. Okay, Jordan, a country in the Middle East. Jordan is a country in Middle East. So Ammonite are the people who lived in east of Jordan. Him the Ammonite worshipped in Rabbah. Rabbah is also a town in Jordan. Okay, and her watery plain in Argob and in Basin. Argob are the lands that are in the east of Dead Sea. Okay, here Moloch was also worshipped. Moloch was also worshipped in Rabbah. He was also worshipped in Basin, to the stream of utmost Arnon, and he was worshipped uh, in Arnon as well. So Milton wants to tell that he was worshipped from Rabbah to Arnon. Means he was worshipped in the whole area of Jordan. Uh, Nor content with such audacious neighborhood, the wisest heart of Solomon he led by fraud to build his temple right against the temple of God on that opprobrious hill, and made his grove the pleasant valley of Hinnom, Tophet thence, and black Gehenna, called the type of hell. Uh, well, Milton tells that he was not content with such audacious neighborhood. Milton tells that Molech was not content. He was not satisfied with that audacious neighborhood. Means the neighborhood of Rabbah, Argob, and Arnon. That was very populous area. Okay. Uh, and that was very attractive area where he was worshipped, but he was not content with that. Okay, the wisest heart of Solomon, uh, he led by fraud to build his temple right against the temple of God on that uh, opprobrious hill. So he also did a fraud with Solomon. The wisest heart of Solomon, he led by fraud to build his temple right against the temple of God on that opprobrious hill. Opprobrious means very shameful, uh, very embarrassing and shameful. Okay, the hill where he was actually worshipped, and made his grove the pleasant valley of uh, Hinnom. Hinnom is also uh, the name given to Gena. Okay, that is a valley of damned people, and this is also the name of a valley where Moloch was worshipped as well. Tophet, uh, actually this word also means hell, but here it was a shrine in south of ancient Jerusalem where human sacrificed their uh, children, where human sacrifices were performed to Moloch. Okay, Tophet is that shrine in Jerusalem. Thence and black Gehenna, called the type of hell. Okay, and that place was also called the type of hell because children were sacrificed there in front of Moloch. So that was a very horrible place, very, you know, loathsome place. That is why that is called a type of hell. First of all, the god that has been introduced to us by Milton is Moloch. And who was Moloch? I hope you have learned that, you have come to know about the reality of Moloch. He was a uh, uh, king, he was a god, he was an idol. Before him, people sacrificed their children. Okay, well, there are more gods or idols to come that Milton introduces to us. The next one is Kimos, and there are many more to come. We will talk about them tomorrow, inshallah. So, this was, dear students, this was all about today's lecture. I hope you have understood it very well. Thanks for being patient listeners, inshallah. See you tomorrow. Thank you very much. Stay blessed. Stay tuned.